I appreciate that. I usually don't get a introduction or anything like that, and whoever done that bio, that was pretty good. Spot on. Oh, I'm glad to be here, and thank you for having us here. There's not many places you go where prayer's involved right before you speak, especially in the position we're in, because usually when we take the podium, there's one or two things that's happened. Is you're at a news conference where something really bad's happened, or you're there about saying that something bad is going on. So to be able to come to some to a place like this where you feel welcomed and some people, a community that want knowledge of what is going on, is something new, but it's something that needs to go on throughout the entire county, entire country. Then we wouldn't have near the problems we have if people were all aware of what is going on. And talking about that, singing that song reminds me that in the Bible, it talks about we'll sing a new song. So I think that's something that I don't carry a tune in a bucket. I sing at church, I blend in. Let me put it that way. I blend in, but the Bible talking about the brain and focusing on that song, I believe that we got to focus on Jesus Christ so we can sing that new song. But I brought someone also very special. Two people. I better not. I won't miss that. My wife doesn't get to go with me much, and we go to a lot of places, and she's usually watching the kids, and we kind of got a babysitter today, and she wanted to come, but she doesn't get to go with me a lot, and I'm glad to have her by my side. That means a lot if you got your spouse by your side. It took me, there was some roller coasters like this in life. In marriage, you see that, but you learn a lot of things, and you'll get scolded when you get outside the rim of those boundaries of it. But I'm glad to have her with me and by my side, and I also brought a guy that's a wealth of knowledge. He is our drug task force commander. He is first on. He knows every call there is and everything that goes on with drugs. And not saying I don't know a lot. Unfortunately, I do know a lot after 25 years of doing this. But it is his primary daily duty as he is the commander of our task force. And I want to share some of that stuff that just show you what really goes on that people they don't realize what goes on. I guess that was Monday morning we had our most recent fentanyl overdose death. Was a 22-year-old young man. And that is a drug that has came into this country with vengeance. And when I say vengeance, 3 years ago when we would test drugs on arrest in cases, you looked at roughly 20% of those would test in the category of possible fentanyl. Now it's upwards of almost 80% of every drug we test has fentanyl. That's marijuana, pills, meth, cocaine, it's all. And that comes in, every bit of that comes in from not this country, because it's an out-of-country drug base that comes into here. And we live in a major fairway that people don't realize. We have 41 and a half miles of interstate in our county. Then we have major state route roads like the Huntsville-Atlanta Highway. We are a centralized hub for drug trafficking. And with that being said, I want to share some numbers with you before we get a little in depth of it that communities are not aware of. And people don't think it affects them until it does. Then it's too late. There's not one family that I know that can stand up and say drugs has not affected their family whatsoever. Somewhere down the line, it has affected their family. And the fentanyl is even more vengeance than that. You'd have a lot of people on marijuana and on meth, and you would see them get in jail, and they would turn to stealing, and families were broken up. What you're seeing with the fentanyl that's coming in is it's doing the same thing, but it's killing them. It's killing them. Last year alone, Dade County, Georgia, it was right up here, had a record number. They had 24 overdose deaths in the county. And I think we're somewhere knocking on the door of 21 right now here in this county. It's some of the peakest rises we've ever had in the drug world. And it's just a small drug that is so disguisable. You can make it look like a Flintstone vitamin, an aspirin, and it's so hard to combat it and fight it. But I want to tell you these numbers, and I don't like to go stand somewhere and say, hey, this is what I done, this is what we done. I'm not that kind of person. I'm just proud of the ship that we drive, that we want to keep pushing forward, And by doing that is you got to have a good crew on board to make that ship run. And you know, you can have a great captain, but if you have a crew that does not put in what they should put in, that ship will sink, it'll redirect, it'll be over with. So try to put the best people we can put and pray hard about it in the positions we put them in, and Jim Phillips' example is one of them. And he's done a phenomenal job. And I have to brag on those guys as they increased the drug arrests in this county 300% on average per year. So, and that's huge. But when I tell you these numbers that goes on right here in our county, the reason our youth is getting so affected and being vulnerable to it is you got to look. The cases of methamphetamine that we have worked and made arrests on, 1,794 cases since we came into the office. 132.66 pounds of methamphetamine. And you bag that up when it only takes a gram, sometimes 2 grams to get the major high you need, and you base that out, that's enough to poison 50,000 people right there. Well, you do the numbers on it, there's not a whole lot more people than that in our county when you start adding up. But that's the world we live in. And, 175 pounds of marijuana, heroin, and what I'm leading to is, bear with me, heroin is 132 grams, 50 cases. Cocaine was 1.8 pounds, which is a lot of cocaine. And the pill cases were 11,242, 12.8 pounds of spice. And this last one right here is the one that we have really tried to push as much education as we can. I do a radio show every Friday, Lord willing that I can, and we always try to venture into, hey, this is, be aware of this, be aware of this, but it is the fentanyl. And the cases that were worked is 90 with 202 grams seized, which is half a pound of fentanyl. And if you know the numbers on that, then I'm going to get Jim to talk some on it too, and it only takes a couple grams to kill 1,000 people. So when you're looking at over, half a pound of it that we've taken, and 3 years ago, we didn't see fentanyl. We didn't see it. We heard about it out west, and in major cities you would hear something about it. Then it just came in like a wrecking ball overnight, and everything we started getting and testing was testing for fentanyl. Everything, pills, the marijuana, the meth, cocaine, it was all testing. So what really opened our eyes to it was about 3 years ago when it kind of first hit here, is we had a deputy to respond to a call. And he gets to this call, and it's a trailer on the south end of the county, and he goes up and he's beating on the door, she's beating on the door, and she goes and looks in the window and notices there's a young man there on the couch, kind of slumped over there at a table. Well, she realizes there's an issue and the door is locked, so what do? We're trying to take the door down to get in to see what's going on. So they kick the door in and go in, and she makes it in the trailer and collapses. So luckily a fireman is there and gets a hold of her, and they get to the outside and they both collapse. What had happened is that young man, was he 21 years old? 21 or 22. He was deceased there right then. So they had got in, and our guys come back and put their suits on and knew there was an issue there at that house, and went in, and the particles in the air was just like the snowflakes just everywhere when they cut the lights on, was off of the fentanyl. The fentanyl's on the table, but that was what's in the air of the fentanyl. And it had killed that young man. And he got exposed to it and it killed him. He had the air conditioner was going, and it was on the table where he was about to use it, but enough of it had got into the air, it got into his system, and it killed him. So we had a deputy down and a fireman down that both had to be rushed down to Marshall Hospital and be Narcan and rushed down there and be treated. Just by opening the door and taking one step in, she collapses. That's how quick it happened. And if there hadn't been anybody there, she would have passed away. It had killed her. So we knew right then, okay, what is that? What is that right there that's just that we're starting to deal with all of a sudden, because you can't see it. So you can't fight it because you can't see it. So we've had to change our whole realm of how we work drugs here in our small, great, wonderful DeKalb County, because the poison that's been in these other places has come like a wave across the entire country, and now we face it. So our guys turn the heat up, and they make a ton of drug cases. I mean, more than Jackson, more than Cherokee, more than Etowah, more than Marshall, where the populations are larger. We make more cases than anybody do. And once again, I'm not saying that as a pat us on the back, because believe me, I don't like day before yesterday getting the call that there's a 22-year-old that's deceased from fentanyl. Because I feel like it got one of them. As hard as we're fighting to stop it, but we try to be as proactive as we can to fight the drugs. It's a hard business. I tell my wife all the time, it's a catch-22. We'll get calls and, hey, you know, these people are selling drugs, and we know they're selling drugs, so I'll contact Jim, and he'll put piles of hours in it, him and his guys. And you got to look, there's only 5 of those that work this entire county. But I tell you how good they are, and I am going to brag on them. We have the only county in the state of Alabama where all our drug guys are state certified, that the state has called and said, hey, we want to hire your guys for part-time. So they go to West Alabama, South Alabama, and work for the state as well, and they do a great job. But you know, when you get those calls that a 22-year-old kid has passed away, you think, well, what more can we do to get it out there? Because it's not like, you know, I'm 45 years old. My wife's older than I am, by the way. But she looks 30, though, you know. But I can remember, you know, as a teenager up to 20 years old, that it was terrible if somebody was smoking marijuana. You just heard of that, man, I can't believe they're smoking that stuff. That stuff stinks so bad, you know. You can't believe they're smoking that stuff. Well, that's how the generation has changed. Is now when we are dealing with 15, 16, and 17-year-old kids that are on meth and on fentanyl. And they're taking the marijuana and they're dabbing it and coating it in the fentanyl. So it's just a huge extremity of the change of the way the drugs have came into our area. And you put every resource you can into it, but the catch-22 of it is I average 400 phone calls a week. That's average. That's 3 cell phones and 2 office phones. And I usually don't even check the email but once every few weeks because I can't get to it. But it'll be complaints or tips, and I usually forward all those over to Jim. I'll dump them all on him and say, hey, I know there's only 5 of y'all, but I've got 42 complaints to work. So they're doing everything they can do to get there. But people will give you these tips, and they'll, you know, complain about this place, and we appreciate it. That's how we make most of our arrests. So you'll work it, and you'll put all these hours into it, and it's the disheartening side of it is you'll put all the hours you can put into working it, and you'll make these arrests, and you'll put them in jail, and there's an automatic bond set. Basically, unless it's a capital murder, you can't keep someone in jail. There's an automatic bond set. So they'll get out, so you're like, wow, you know, we just spent 14 days working this place and got them, and they were out in 45 minutes. That's the frustrating side of it. Then they go to court and get probation for the 3rd or 4th time, and you get where you have to, like the pastor saying, you better be prayed up, and you better be trying to live right, because you'll get disgruntled because you just see failure after failure, almost is what it looks like. Then when someone passes away at 22 years old, and I believe in all things happen for a reason. I believe you cross someone's path for a reason. I don't believe in coincidence. I don't believe I'm here in coincidence. Even though we never spoke, and you spoke to the secretary, and she was just like, hey, you need to be here at this time. That's kind of all I got, you know. But you're here for a reason. And, you know, the 22-year-old young man that lost his life due to fentanyl, there's going to be a story there, and there's going to be something positive that has to come out of it. But his story is probably about 2 years ago. He was 19 years old, first time I met that young man. Out of 70,000 people in this county, I met that young man at a trailer. And they had done a search warrant at that trailer. They had worked it for probably a week, I guess, had worked it and got enough to do a search warrant and give a time we was going to meet and hit that trailer. So we met, bam, they hit the trailer. First thing when they go in the trailer, there's a 18-year-old girl dead, laying on the floor. And I tell you this, she was the color of your shirt, black, blue, laying there. So they take care of business, secure everyone there. One of them had a gun. They take them into custody. And Narcan that girl 6 times they Narcan. Yeah, Narcan, this girl, somebody's baby was laying there on the floor that had been exposed to the fentanyl and was laying there dead. If we'd have waited 2 minutes to hit that house, we could have never brought her back, could have never. They continued to work on that girl in Narcan, and they're Narcan and working on her until they brought her back to life. Called an ambulance, got her out of there, rushed to the hospital. That young man was there, and he was 19 at the time, and he had fentanyl, and said, listen, you know, this is the second time we've ran across you, that you've been around something like this. It's going to get you. It's going to get you. You got to understand, there's warnings there. It's kind of like going to heaven or hell. You get a lot of warnings. You get a lot of warnings that people don't realize. You get a lot of warnings on that path you're talking about. It says the way is really broad. You know, you can cross, you know, there's something you can do in a broad path, is you can get side by side and go down a broad path. But if you follow somebody, you're going to be in line with them. And that's kind of, you know, we had to talk with him, hey, this is going to kill you. This is going to kill you. And how many more people is going to die, you know, and you're going to be one of them. Well, we fast forward, and he was the one Monday that we ran across, that we tried to help. So it carries the strongest addiction than anything we have ever dealt with. Anything we have ever dealt with. Fentanyl carries the strongest addiction. Most people will enter into a rehab and they won't stay. 12 ladies, they came and said, hey, we want to take 12 people out of the jail and we want to put them into a rehab, a women's rehab. And we're going to educate them. It's faith-based. We're going to give them everything we can, take them out of that. And a year after this program has started, 9 of them completed it. 3 of them couldn't complete it. They kept getting out and leaving, getting out and leaving. 9 of them completed it. And 6 months later, there was only 1 left that wasn't back in our jail or failed the drug test for fentanyl. That's how potent fentanyl really is. It is terrible. And I'm not telling you this to get you down. I'm just telling you what the communities don't know that's out there. And the frustrating side of it is I just told you about almost 1,800 arrests. Then you break down to the fentanyl, almost 90 in the last year and a half. There may have been one of those go to prison. I think the ratio is 1 in 73 right now. So that's what we're facing. They may be on drug court or probation, but and I'm not bashing on anyone. I know everybody has a job to do. I firmly believe that mine's the hardest. You know, and you want to think that if you have a job, that yours is the hardest. But it is, because there's so many people calling and say, I'm afraid my grandson's going to die. I'm afraid my brother's going to overdose and die. And I'll call Jim and they'll work it all they can do to work it. They'll catch them, put them in jail. And that doesn't save them. You know, there's only one thing, and I'm not saying it because I'm standing here in church. You can ask my wife. That's all we do is travel to revivals and everywhere. But there's only one thing that's going to save you from an addiction like that, or going to save you from sin. That's Jesus Christ. Amen. And you know, when Kim had asked me, she said, you know, everybody calls down here and said, I think Miss Poe's going to be the same way. I think one of their number one questions is, how do you fight this? You know, when I get those speaking, people ask that. And it's not my money. I've seen families go completely bankrupt, lose their farms, selling their homes and land and vehicles to get them in rehab. Every year we see that, and we've got so many in rehab, and Jim and his guys have a great connection with rehab. They can send them, but they can't make them get off of it. They can't make them stop it. They can just help them as far as they can help them. So that question that remains, it's not court order, court referral. You know, here's what I tell people: if they're in jail, that means they can't get it. That means they can't be around it. So there's only 2 options: is they've got to be in jail and detox themselves, or they got to get around good, godly people to pray with them and keep an eye on them and keep them like a mother hen in her wings until they find Christ. That's really the only 2 ways to stop it. You know, the devil says he's here and there roaring like a lion, and I see it stronger today than anybody does. We've come to a time where, you know, it's going to wax worse and worse, and you know that. If you read the same book I read, it doesn't change, and it doesn't say this changes. It says this is how it is. But also, you know, the Bible says there's a remnant of those left, like in Revelations. So I leave thee with very few. I think you come to a time where in times like this, that the churches have got to stand up, the communities have got to stand up. Not only do they got to pray a whole lot more than they've been praying, but they got to stand up and reach out to some of these people that maybe they're aware of, or some of those young kids like that right there, and really just straight up tell them the truth. I'm not trying to get something rolling here, but if you base everything on how you live your life and how you should base it off the Bible. Because at the end of the day, that's the whole story. At the end of the day, and I think about kids, and and every one of us is guilty of it, where your kids are on the internet, or they're on a game, or they're on their phone, and it just starts taking time away from family time. And really how you educate those, the world is that phone. The world is educating those children. So the way you stop them from getting consumed in stuff like the fentanyl crisis is you spend that time with them. You educate them on what you know. You educate them on life and what the consequences are. I guarantee over in Egypt, when they was talking about putting the blood over the threshold, I bet those kids was asking the daddy when he was over there swiping the blood, did you get it all? Did you get enough? Did you get enough to make sure? Did you get enough to make sure? And that's what I like to tell people, is this the cold hard truth, and it's an evil drug, and it's ruining our young folks. Man, it's ruining them. But just like right there in the Bible, did you tell them enough about it? Did you educate them enough about it to let them know just how bad it is? Because if they missed a doorpost that night over there, you know what happens. The Bible tells us what happens. So if you miss the doorpost, you cannot not expect something to happen. So I'm a firm believer, and you've got to cover the doorpost. You've got to tell them the truth. You've got to tell them the facts about it. And you've got to educate them on what's going on. Jim had prepared a whole bunch of stuff, and I never read off the paper. I don't. I feel it, when I get up and I talk to people, it's just like I see those people, like Monday morning. I see those reports. I see those, and I know there's families hurting out there right now. They're hurting bad because we've lost a bunch of young folks. We've lost, W.T. Wilson's has been full down here in the last year. And then a lot of those have been fentanyl crisis overdoses. Used to, as far as, I had a good friend, there was a trooper with me, and his sister overdosed and passed away in a bathtub in a motel in Gadsden. Had a beautiful 6-year-old daughter. She was a beautiful lady. Was doing great, had a great job, and got on and tried some heroin and got addicted to it. The family's like, hey, let's put you in a rehab and straighten your life out. She snuck out in the rehab, ran in a motel room, got some fentanyl, overdosed, and died in the bathtub. And now the family's raising her 6-year-old daughter. So things like that is what keeps me driving, to tell people the truth, to tell them that it's going to affect your family. And it may get real close to your family. That's why everybody needs to make sure they cover the doorpost and they educate their kids about it. And the only way to stop this, and I'm not going to stand here and tell you that we're going to fix it and we're going to stop it and we're going to arrest everybody and we're going to get it, because we ain't. As long as the devil's running wild, man's not going to. But the only way you're going to stop it and stop it in your family is to educate your family about it and just pray hard about it. And, I've seen a lot of people change their lives. I've seen a lot of people really get saved. We have a lot of jailhouse conviction that goes on, and we have a lot of people saved at the jailhouse. And unfortunately, we'll see them in 2 or 3 weeks, or we'll see them, there's been very few that you never see again. And I don't want them there, believe me. We have a job to do, and they go out and arrest 10 people and 12 people, and that sounds all great, fine, and dandy. But I'd rather not see those 10 or 12 people or 14 people. I'd rather see them up here at the gas station and say, hey, I appreciate what you've done, or thank you for being honest with me. That's what my goal has been, is to see those people that have been in and out of jail, is to see those people not back in jail, or either not have to go out and work a scene where those guys go out and put a hazmat suit up and body bag a 22-year-old boy that 2 years before we talked with his mother. We done everything. I'm not releasing personal information. I'm just telling you that was one of them that breaks my heart, that I thought about all day Monday. As we dealt with him twice. We dealt with his family, and they were trying to get him some help. Then he ends up passing away to an overdose. Still had it right there with him. So that's the frustrating side of this job. It's an enjoyable side when you see things go good. When you have people to come up and thank you, and my life's been changed. That is an awesome moment to be doing this career. And I have been for 25 years. Time has flew by. But, we're in a time now where it's made me realize that we can do our job as hard as we can do it. But without the communities and the people behind us and the churches and reaching out to the people that are in need of it, that's the only way we're going to slow it down or fix it. Have any questions? Jim, I know y'all have some that I can't answer, first of all. Yes, sir.
Yes, I wanted to know if our judges who adjudicate these cases have any training in drug abuse to help them in adjudicating. And then my second question is, have ICE and the FDA had any success at cutting off the flow of this at the border now that immigration has been tightened up considerably? Two questions.
Yeah, two questions. That's good. The number one question is really what concerns our county. The number one question you ask is the judicial system. I'll put it this way. Fentanyl has the stiffest drug penalty ever in history. Now it's being watered down now. All of a sudden, it's being watered back down. Methamphetamine, when it was on the rise, they created all these stiff drugs. They seen such a massive trend in addiction, they went in and added an extra felony, a Class D felony, which basically means nothing. You just have a felony on your record. It doesn't do anything to you. So, and I'll let him touch on that in just a second. But basically right now what we face and the numbers we have is you have to have 7 convictions to go to prison.
Wow.
7. So we'll catch someone with drugs. So one thing they do, and I support it 100%, if we catch someone and they have a small amount of drugs, they'll try to work that angle and try to get where it came from, to cut the head off the snake per se. They'll try to work that angle. So what they'll have to do is they'll have to get distribution charges on them, possession charges on them, and they'll go and present it, and they'll take it to court, and they'll come back and, you know, for an example, if you have less than 5 or 6, you're probably going to get 30 years probation. If you get caught again, they're probably going to add 10 years probation to that. If you get caught again, they're going to keep adding drug court and some more probation until you get caught about 6 or 7 times, then you're going to go to prison. So that's the monster that we face. We added on a $4.2 million expansion to our jail to where we came in and averaged around 140 people. Now we average around 260 people, and we built an expansion on where we hold 88 more people. So the jail is full, the prison is full, but it takes that much effort to get someone to prison. So that's a twofold question you ask, because a lot of times what they do, they mandate court referral, where if you get caught with this, you go to court referral. You're gonna go pee in a cup every week. Problem with that is unless you fail 3 or 4 times, they don't revoke it. So you can go down there and fail 3 or 4 drug tests. So that's that monster. Now, monster number 2 with the border is yes. But what you see is they was already so much across the border. They own more. The cartels own more property and houses in towns along the border than the citizens of the towns own. And they have these stash houses. They have these tunnels. They have so much of it. Just like these guys made a traffic stop on 35 right here, right outside of Rainsville, and the guy had a big igloo cooler in the back. Dog hits on it. They cut the sidewall out of the cooler. There's 26 pounds of meth in it.
Wow.
Out of an igloo cooler. Nice guy, white guy driving a pickup truck. Carrier. He was a carrier for them. They'll pay him $2,500 to take it here to there. So a lot of that is already over here. And what they do in a time like the border, so much pressure on the border, they'll just hold and they'll hold and they'll hold. I went to a lot of interdiction schools, worked a lot of stuff. My wife can tell you about some of the trips. I'd go down on Mobile and I-10. You know, the most I ever seen, I seen 700 pounds of marijuana in a reefer trailer one day stopped on accident, but it just the Lord's guidance and will. But what they will do is find different ways. They will find when a tsunami's coming or a hurricane's coming, where you can't check every vehicle at the border. You can't run a dog at every vehicle. They work so hard to try to get one step ahead of how we stop them. And they will tell you, the ones that we have caught that have actually, you know, come out and talked with us and let us know, they'll wait till one of the worst storms in the world is brewing and coming, lightning and thunder and popping, and they'll run 25 cars deep right up to the border, and you might get lucky and pull one off the side, or 24 just come through with 5 tons altogether. So that's what we battle. But the more presence at the border, yes, has slowed a lot of different things down. It has, and now's the time just to keep the pedal mashed. You can't let off of it because that's their way of living, is getting that here. Maybe that helped that question. Anybody? Somebody? Oh, go ahead.
I do, about these young teenagers you mentioned, 15, 16 years old. In your experience, where are they getting it to start with? School or family members, or how does it even reach someone that young?
I'm gonna let Jim answer that one.
Okay.
I'm gonna let him answer that.
So I don't need one, I can talk loud enough. Everybody hear me?
Like stream, like it's like stream.
Oh, slide screen, okay. All right, so the biggest problem we faced, like you said, was the 15 to 20-year-old, 21-year-old age group getting addicted to fentanyl. Fentanyl is out here and has so many different angles. Your friends, your older friends. When I was in school, I hung out with a lot older crowd. Obviously, I was into what they were into, even at a younger age. So it's kind of the same trend, okay? They're going to be around those older people. They're going to get there. If they want it, they're going to find a way, okay? It is, and it's disguised. And a lot of this, like the sheriff said earlier, is it's disguised as so many different things. The biggest thing that these kids, and I'll just be honest with you, I played football, I was an athlete my whole career, had injuries from it. You would go to the doctor, they would give you something for your pains or whatever. That's how it starts, okay? Not saying that's a bad thing. Sometimes medically that is. But when you get on this stuff and you start relying on it, then you try to find ways to carry on that so you can continue to feel like getting up and continue moving. Does that kind of help you out?
I personally know a lady, very wealthy family, went to college as a teacher, and she got hurt playing college softball and hurt her shoulder, and they would prescribe her pills, and it got to where the pills just wasn't working, so she ended up getting on fentanyl, on black market fentanyl. You know, a friend of a friend asked a friend to get a friend, can you help me out? Next thing you know, she's hooked on it. She turned into stealing from her family, breaking into their house, cost her marriage, her kids, and they're all back together now. Praise the Lord. She got in church, got saved, what happened. But that's how a lot of those trends with our younger ones are going. Some of these that have passed away recently, one of them, and one that there's a long story about, that we actually worked a case and actually had a conviction for murder that we presented, to where this person knew that they give them, instead of a pain pill, a fentanyl pill. They knew it, but this person didn't know they was getting a fentanyl pill. They thought they was getting a pain pill. They died. So we backed that up and worked that. They put hours and hours and hours. I had grandparents in my office screaming, hollering, cussing, so mad at me. You know, and it's hard to sit down and talk with someone when they're just so, they only see one way. They only see one way, is you got to catch those people. I can't believe y'all hadn't caught them. That they don't know the hours we put in that we have caught them, or they've got let loose, or you know, you can't sit there and say, well, maybe you need to paint the threshold a little more. You know, so it's a tough situation. So you just take it in and let it in. But those are situations that a lot of our young folks are seeing it, is around schools, or simply as an injury, or simply as, hey, try this here. It goes back to the marijuana that we talked about, like when we was growing up, that everybody knew of, you thought was smoking marijuana. It's getting that way to where nobody want no marijuana unless it's got the fentanyl in it, you know, and that's how it's got to the schools. And I'm going to say this, is we've done a great job with our schools. We average 14 cases a year of cases in schools, from violence to drugs. We average 14 a year. And now we average 3. But we're in those schools. We've got SRO in those schools. We even raised the money and got a dog. And all that dog does is go from school to school to school. And they run the parking lots. Nobody knows about it. They run the parking lots. They run the teachers' vehicles. They'll go in at night. They'll run the dog at night and see, because it'll leave a residue. They'll go in at night and see if it's hitting on a certain locker, so we'll know which one to look at and see if something's happening there. So we've tried to deter it every way we can, and because it's mean and it's nasty. I'm going to say Jim and I think Jim's probably got about a year on me as far as we've been working about the same amount of time. And I'm going to say this, he is passionate about what he does, and when people call, and he knows the frustrations of it, but he also knows the flip side of it. Sometimes he's a little bullheaded, but no, he's great. But he can tell you that the wages of the war on drugs has changed. It has changed from an addiction to a killing. And that's what is taking place. And I feel like we try to get out. We have community meetings. We had one here a while back on the south end of the county. And I wish more churches, I honor you for doing this. I wish more churches would get together and say, hey, come out and tell us the truth. Because you're the ones that's out in the community. You're the ones that's raising the kids, or has the kids, the grandkids, or knows the families. You're the ones that can get it out there to them about how bad this really is, because you just heard it, and it's the truth. I mean, what I just told you about the numbers and the deaths and the kids, it's the absolute truth. I think we've had, in the last 3 years, I think we've had 4 or 5, maybe it's 5, in schools that have overdosed. Like overdosed in the bathroom, overdosed on fentanyl in the bathroom, and had to be Narcan out of school. Yes, go ahead.
I can remember classmates when I went in school that their parents were addicted to marijuana or methamphetamines, that their children would bring it to the schools and sell it
Right.
because they had access to it.
Well,
So that's another way that the children get a hold of it and become addicted to it.
and I know I'm very blunt. I get that. I get that every Friday almost. Somebody says and I'm not trying to hurt someone's feelings. I'm just telling you that your kids are going to do what they see, and they're going to listen to what you say. That's kind of how it goes. If they see you doing something, they're going to assume it's okay. If you're sitting there drilling Jesus in their head, guess what's in their head? So that's a lot of it, and I know some good people that's had some tough times with the kids. I put my uncle in prison for 9 months. I told him, I said, I know you're on dope. I hate to see you. You're gonna die. You're gonna overdose. You're gonna kill yourself. I'm gonna catch you before it's over with. And one night I did. And he loves me to death. He goes with me to church all the time. He hadn't missed church since got out of prison. But it takes one or two things. It takes them seeing that, hey, wow, this is it. I can live in jail. This is it. Or either, man, I didn't know life would be so good. That's what it takes. Like I do, I applaud you. I didn't know what we were going to do tonight. I didn't know, and I just feel like within all my heart we've done exactly what we're supposed to do. So I applaud. I wish every church would get together and have a community of their people and say, hey, tell us the truth. Because, I'd be lying to you if I told you everything's all right. It's not all right.
Well, what can we do as a church?
What you just said earlier, it really surprised me when you said 250 people, came through here. People, when they get to a low point in life, that's when you can reach out to them. When we got somebody in jail that's going through DTs and they've been there a week or so, now they didn't want to listen to you the first 10 days, 7 days. They'd cuss you, holler at you, don't come around me. Well, about 10 days when they're in there hurting and crying and they're starting to realize their family matters, their kids matter. They would like to go eat a real cooked meal instead of what we give them in a box. That's the point in time where you can reach somebody. And we try to do that. We try to do that a lot down there. And we've reached a lot of them. But I think as far as the church, that's something you're going to have to pray about and see how you can reach them. Because you just told me an opportunity that a lot of people would love to have as far as sharing the gospel or reaching somebody. It's 250 people coming through here. Yeah. Anybody else? I figured y'all would have a really hard question.
I've got a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Instead for somebody else to ask you, I can just tell you. I heard yesterday that there's a new drug coming into the service stations, and it's being used for a painkiller. And it was on the news yesterday. I read it, and when I was down at the Mapco station below my house, I was down there last night, and she said you'd be surprised at the young boys that's coming in to her station and grabbing a beer or something that they're not supposed to have, and she swipes their driver's license because the camera's going, she doesn't want to get caught and lose her job, and the driver's license is fake. She said that she has seen quite a few fake driver's licenses come through that would not pass the driver's license thing. But the new drug, it starts with a K, I can't pronounce it, K-E-A-T-O-N, something like that.
Kratom.
Yeah.
Well,
Said-
we done a saturation last week, and I was gonna pull a truck over, and they ran from me and threw out 2 big bags of kratom. And go ahead, I'm gonna let him.
So-
He's a master on
So
kratom.
with the kratom, what it looks like an energy drink. Like you get those 5-hour energies, the little small bottles. The name of it is actually Bougie Bliss. Okay? It was brought to us for testing to figure out what was in this. And I couldn't get it to test for anything, so I called. We have a great working relationship with the forensic science down in Auburn. I called the lab technician. I'm like, look, this is what I've got. I'm gonna expedite it down there to y'all. Would y'all expedite me a test on it so I can figure out what's in this crap, because they are selling it off the shelves like it's going like hotcakes. And long story short, kratom is illegal in Alabama. It's a felony to possess kratom. However, you could cross the line in Georgia. You can purchase it legally and take all the kratom you want in Georgia. But if you cross that state line, you now have a felony if you get caught with it. Okay? This is essentially the same stuff. This is kratom. It's a liquid kratom-based drink that is for pain, man. Is all it is. So it is illegal, and there will be letters going out to these service stations that they will have 3 days to get it off their shelves. If they don't get it off their shelves, we're going to seize every bit of it. So maybe if they're on the live stream, they can hear that and go ahead and take it off.
They said in Georgia that you can cross over, and they got signs for that they have it at that station.
They advertise. It's kind of like the old days where it was a dry county here. You couldn't buy beer. Everybody go to Georgia and get beer. That's the kratom, and the kratom is a bad thing. It was kind of like the spice. You used to buy spice here at the store. What they call it, synthetic marijuana, man-made marijuana. Then it started really affecting people badly. Passed a bill, got it off the shelf. Same thing with the kratom. Started affecting people. State passed a bill, took it off the shelf. But Georgia still sells all that, so they'll go over there and get it. And the problem we face with it is if we do get them and we do charge them, it's almost like the black eye theory, we call it, is they can go right up here. As far as that goes, they can live at Ida or Cartersville, and in 3 minutes they're across the line. They got some kratom, they hop across. They might live 2 miles from there, but they get stopped or something, they got it. Well, they'll end up dismissing it. Well, it's actually illegal there, and they're going over there and getting it, but it's still illegal here. But it goes back to the alcohol, and the reason I'm going to say this, because usually history repeats itself. You used to go to Georgia, and you come into Alabama, and you could go to jail if that was beer from Georgia. It was a arrestable offense. Okay, then they started the violation prohibition law, where you can't have anything in this county or whatever. It's a violation prohibition law. Then they done away with the violation prohibition law because they said it was a taxation. So basically, you could go over to Georgia and buy a beer and bring it back to Alabama. That's what we're afraid we're going to be facing with this kratom, is they're going to say, well, we're not going to sell it because history proves it kills people. We're not getting in a liability lawsuit on the level. But if you go buy it in Georgia, that's y'all's business.
What kind of drink does it come in? The little brown fat bottles?
It comes in different categories.
About that high?
About that tall, and the bottle that I had is a brown bottle. You can't see the liquid in it. It's a real dark liquid. It was wrapped and it said Bougie Bliss.
Yeah.
Never mentioned having kratom in it, but they use these big words on it that is the same thing as kratom when you look them up and you read about it. And we actually YouTubed that product and found a lot of information on it before we ever sent it to the lab, and knew kind of what it was, And that's what I told Miss Armstrong. I said, look, I think this is gonna be kratom, but I want a state examination on it, and I want something in my back pocket before I go to all these service stations to have them remove it, because, you know, I've been doing this part of my world for 20 years. So the spice, things of that nature, when it first came out, it was so hard to keep up with because they would change one compound when they were making this stuff, and it made it legal. Until the state finally said, okay, any synthetic. Now, once they did that, I was like, hey, they finally got one right. Let's go. And we were able to run it out. And that worked in our advantage. This is the same thing. This kratom, it's a bottle. It's a whole lot smaller than that water bottle there. It's probably 3 inches tall and narrow, skinny. And
I've been reading down there at the Mount Post Station
yes, ma'am.
to see what's in those little bottles that they
Yeah.
put up there close to the register with ice on them, and it's little bottles like you're talking about.
Mhm.
But
Some of them are
parents-
5-hour energy and stuff like that. Those are completely,
Legal,
yes, those are fine.
but if the parents need to know what those bottles look like so they can see if they got them, if kids are getting them.
It was if I'm remembering correctly, it was a gold wrapping with black writing, and it said bougie, and then right underneath it had bliss, and it was at an angle, like a 45-degree angle on the bottom. So,
But they'll take that, and something that we face is, we got a dog from Auburn, and the dog goes to the schools, and it indicates on firearms, explosives, and vapes. Those 3 things is all it was trained in. And it was, we got the dog donated to us. It was $42,000 for the dog and $8,500 for the training. We had to pay for the training for the instructor. But those vapes have gotten so bad in the schools, so we got the dog to try to deter that. Because you see all the vapes when you walk in those stores. There's all kinds of blueberry, all kinds of crazy stuff. Well, there'll be a combination of them that got slid in there that tests TH level like marijuana. So the kids would sneak and buy those vapes. So we'd have to monitor those stores and see how much TH value is in there to take it off the shelf. And while at the same time, you have the state selling a license to where you can grow hemp. It's marijuana, but it's marijuana. It's marijuana. So we have 14 of those facilities in this county that grow that hemp. And they grow it commercially and ship it and wherever it goes. But you would have a license to sell that. So when they started putting the TH in the stores, they said, wait a minute, you're giving a license for these people to grow this product like a farm product and sell it and harvest it, but we can't sell this in our stores. That's killing our business. So they started saying, well, you can have point such and such TH level, but you can't have any more. It's basically saying we're going to give you just enough to get your kid high, and that's it. So that's the world we're facing. I'm sorry. We could go on all night, but we could tell you a lot of things. Anybody else? Hey, we appreciate it. Thank y'all so much for having us. Thank you so much. Yeah.